Series 5 VHP engines. We're going to kind of walk you through some of our maintenance items as well as some of the things that have been updated on the engine. So with our enhanced breather system here, we're going to make sure we keep the blanket on there. There is a membrane that's inside here that at 8,000 hours does need to be changed. Our breather up here, this is where we're actually adjusting. Make sure that the holes that are up here do not get painted over. If you look right here, there's one underneath each one of the latches. The diaphragm that's in there and O-ring are at a 12,000 hour where you need to do a service to it. This is one of the identifying items that you can actually see change for a Series 5 versus a Series 4. If we look up at the top where we've got our connections here, we can see that that's actually cast in instead of the piping that we would have had for a Series 4. The other thing that you can use as an identifying item is the turbochargers. By putting more work on the turbo, we had to change what we had for our intercooler as well as change our turbos. These, you can see, have our GE logo on them currently. As we come around to this side, we can see the GE logo a little bit easier for the lettering for where that's marked. And again, seeing that the cast item is here on the intercooler will be one of the identifying items for a Series 5 engine. One of the other things that we've updated is our air cleaners. We've made them so that it's now a bolt style instead of the latch style that we had before. This makes it so that we can hinge it on this side or on the other for what's going to be more convenient as you're going around the bottles. As we look down to the bottom here, we can see that we've got a new rear cover. Prior to this, we had just 2 locations, and some of our applications needed 2 starters, so you didn't have the ability to put one of our manual barring devices in there. The new rear cover is something that is retrofittable to previous generation engines, but it is currently a standard item on our VHP Series 5 engines. One of the big things that was a change from our previous engines is the X-cooled head. The X-cooled head currently can be identified with the H revision of the part number down here. That is current for Series 4 and Series 5, but there are different components that are used inside the head. That greatly helps us in terms of dropping our temperatures, especially for those low WKI, high BTU fuels. As we come through here, being an ESM2 engine, we also have our boost that is being measured, and then our communication line that comes over to our regulator. Being an AFR2 engine, we have the fuel control valves that are on here. These are going to be one on either side. We've also seen a change to some of the pipe couplings. As we look here, this is our single fuel inlet, and here we've got our update to the dresser style coupling compared to the stainless that we had before, finding that this helps us with our alignment. Behind the regulator is where we find our STU. The STU is taking those thermocouples from our exhaust as well as our main bearings and bringing those in. Over here we have our pre-loop. We want to make sure that we check the level on here on a daily basis in order to make sure that that is properly filled. When we look here, this is part of our lubrication system. This is our submicron filter. Prior to this, you would have seen the brand Microspin on here. This is an updated version. The papers are a little bit different, so make sure that you do order the correct components for servicing this. One of the things that we've changed is some of our identifying stickers. Instead of using words, we're using the pictographs. Now this is showing us where one of our Zerk fittings is for where we're going to connect up for our auxiliary pump. The other one is identified here, but it's actually right here on the pump. So the sticker is here, but the actual fitting is below. As we had with Series 4, we've moved our oil cooler up to the top, but marking where our drain locations are again with the pictograph. As we look here, we can see where our cam magnetic sensor is. Remember, back here is our line that runs the oil over to our heads. This is one of the spots that has the magnetic plug that we want to make sure is cleaned at every oil service. As we come around to the side here, we can see our 5 canister filters that are on here. We've also got where our thermostats are located behind there and our pressure adjustment. As we move to the bottom, we're going to see where we've actually got our sensor here for watching where our pressure is. But then we've also got our sample port right here. So we've included the sample port on the updated engines so that you don't have to find a pre-filter location on the engine otherwise. As we continue to move around with an ESM2 engine, we see the updated PDB or power distribution box. As we look at the PDB, there is a reset that's located in here so that if you need to get access to resetting those circuits, it is in there. But we've really eliminated a lot of the reasons to come in here by getting rid of all of the identifying LEDs. That is all now based on the HMI. The HMI also allows you to reset the PDB, so you have two locations that you can reset it if you need to. As we follow around a little bit more, we see where we've got our IPMD2 and our ESM2 ECU. The IPMD2 is what gives us the ability to go from our normal spark plug interval and get us close to that 4,000 hour expected spark plug interval. This has multiple levels of energy, closer to the 7 range compared to what we had just 2 on the old IPMD. This is the new location for the ECU. We can see all of our letters identifying which cable goes where. We're going to have our power that's coming in through here, but one of the things that we want you to reference is right here on what would be our E location. There's a nut that's on here holding this tight. Make sure as you go around the engine you give that a quick tug and make sure that it's nice and snug so that we don't have a spot where we could let any water in. As we come around the rest of the engine, here's where we have our air starter. Our air starter is carryover from the previous engines, but this is something that is a maintenance item where we want to look at it periodically to make sure that the fuel or the air pressure that's going through there is clean to make sure that it engages properly. Over here we have our single fuel inlet. Again, this showing the updated style that has the dresser style couplings so that we can make it a little bit more rigid or a little bit better mounting for the fuel. As we look to the rear here, just above the starter, this is our other plug for the oil system. So that's where our last magnetic plug that we would want to make sure is removed and cleaned at every oil service. So here we have one of our Series 4, a current production engine. So it is also going to have that STU system. It's going to have the ESM2 where we've got our IPMD and our ECU on the other side. It's going to show that updated submicron filter. And we actually do see on this engine that we also have that same X-cooled head with the H revision. So for an identifying item, as we come around to the rear, we're going to look at the difference. As we look at this turbo, it doesn't have that GE logo on it. It's got that Garrett identification on it. The other thing that we can do in this location is look up at the top of our intercooler. And instead of where we had that cast piece, we've got these crossover pipes to feed into the top of our intercooler that we have there. From this side, it might be a little bit easier to see those crossover pipes. But that is one of the identifying items to separate a Series 4 from a Series 5 of current production engines. We do see that with a Series 4, we still have the previous generation of IPMD instead of the IPMD2 that we use on the Series 5 engine. So this would have our regular expected spark plug interval of about 1,500 hours.